Lois Riess seemed like an unlikely killer. She was a grandmother, living in a quiet town in Minnesota, but behind her unassuming exterior, she harbored a dark secret. Lois was a gambling addict. She spent her days feeding slot machines, losing thousands of dollars. Reports say she lost at least $100,000, and all of it was her own money, not to mention the debt she had racked up. But when you're deep in addiction, you stop thinking clearly. Lois's life was spiraling out of control, and she was running out of ways to cover up her mess. Lois was married to David Riess, a man who didn't deserve to be dragged into the chaos of her destructive behavior. One day, when Lois realized how far in debt she had become, she snapped. It's not entirely clear whether she was just looking for money or ashamed to admit her gambling problem to David, but she made a cold decision. In their home, Lois killed David. She shot him, ending his life with ruthless indifference. Then, like a predator on the prowl, she hatched a plan to cover her tracks. Lois told the employees at the worm farm she and David owned that David wouldn't be coming into work for a while due to an illness. It was a lie designed to buy her some time before anyone got suspicious. She lived on in the house, while David's body lay decomposing for 11 days. The horror didn't stop there. Lois then embezzled $10,000 from David's business account before fleeing the scene in his Escalade. Now a fugitive, Lois's addiction drove her to do something even more chilling. She planned to steal someone else's identity. She traveled south, visiting casino after casino along the way, gambling away more of her ill-gotten gains. As she made her way to Florida, she hatched a plan that would make her even more dangerous. Lois decided to find someone who looked like her, kill them, and assume their identity. It was a sickeningly calculated move. In Fort Myers, Florida, Lois found her next victim. Her name was Pamela Hutchinson, and she bore a passing resemblance to Lois. They met at a local bar, and Lois, ever the charmer, struck up a conversation with Pamela. It didn't take long before the two of them were fast friends, bonding over drinks and spending time together. Lois kept up the act, pretending to be a harmless, friendly woman. But once they were alone, Lois made her move. In the privacy of Pamela's condo, Lois shot her in cold blood. The next morning, Lois showed no remorse. She called the front desk of Pamela's condo, pretending to be her, and extended the stay for a few more nights. She wasn't done yet. Lois rifled through Pamela's things, taking clothes, cash, credit cards, and most importantly, Pamela's ID. She loaded everything into Pamela's car and drove away. Security footage confirmed her actions, and Lois continued on her journey, hitting more casinos as she made her way towards South Padre Island, Texas. When Lois arrived in South Padre, her twisted plan continued. She went to a local restaurant and, as if following a script, spotted her next target, another woman she could exploit. Her name was Bernardet. Lois befriended her with ease, just as she had with Pamela. The two women spent time together, and Lois made plans to meet up with Bernardet again. But Lois had no intention of letting Bernardet live to see another day. Meanwhile, back in Minnesota, David's employees began to worry when they hadn't heard from him in days. They requested a welfare check, and when police arrived, they discovered David's body, badly decomposed after being left for over a week. At the same time, Pamela's body was discovered in Florida. It didn't take long for authorities to connect the dots between the two murders. Both victims had been shot with the same gun. Police launched a nationwide manhunt for Lois Riess, but her addiction to gambling became their key to tracking her down. Casinos, where Lois frequently gambled, had security cameras everywhere. Detectives were able to track her using footage from the casinos and her banking activity. Soon they zeroed in on South Padre Island. The public was warned that Lois might be targeting women who looked like her to steal their identities, and her photo was broadcast everywhere. Lois was getting ready to meet Bernardet again when, ironically, it was a bartender who finally recognized her from the news. The bartender quickly contacted the police, and within minutes, U.S. Marshals and local law enforcement surrounded Lois at a bar. They arrested her without incident, and though the security footage of the arrest was blurry, her mugshot made it clear who she was. Lois Riess was eventually convicted of 2 murders, and she was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison. Lois's descent into madness is a chilling reminder of how far someone can fall when addiction takes hold. Her cold-blooded murders were carried out with ruthless calculation, and her complete lack of remorse shocked even the most seasoned investigators. Lois Riess wasn't just a grandmother with a gambling problem. She was a killer.